everybody doing today? That sucks! How is everybody doing today? Yeah! Oh man, that feels so much better. Hey, I'm weird! That's so weird. Oh man. What does it mean? I spent some time trying to think, what is weird? And I actually put a totally different presentation together that was a whole bunch of slides and things like that. And I was like, this is actually weird in itself that I would try to do some kind of a PowerPoint presentation with so these are the only words that I typed out for this that were final. So I thought to myself, what is weird? What is that? And I thought about it, and I was like, what's weird? This is me, in case you didn't know. That's what I look like a lot. So I was like, trying to think, what's weird? And I thought about it some more, and I was like, that's kind of weird. And then I thought about it a little bit more, and I was like, oh man, that's kind of weird too. And I was like, one more time, that's pretty weird. That's weird. What is weird? Well, I think that's weird. And you know what's even weirder is staring at your own face in Photoshop for an hour trying to put something like that together. So, oh, there was one more. There's tiny little ones. There he is. So, weird is really, as far as our definition of what weird is really unusual. Things that don't seem to fit the norm. Things that are maybe not normal. It's so negative sounding. It sounds so horrible. Weird. Oh, that guy's weird. Well, when I was asked to be weird today, I said, thank you, that sounds awesome. I am weird. I embrace being weird because I've pretty much been weird my entire life. So let's break it down. Weird is, if you look at the etymology of the word weird, you go way back to, am I too far? I'm sorry, I'm feedbacking. That's weird. You take the word weird and you actually go back to some of the earliest definitions of what that word means, and it means enchanted. And that sounds awesome to me. So you're like, oh man, did you see that enchanted guy over there? So enchanted, so enchanted. I feel like that's a better word to describe what I do. So to give you an idea of what I do, I'm in the theater world. I'm in the comedy world. I'm also a business owner. Those things are weird to put together. I have a lot of weird friends. When I met a lot of you this morning, I tried to be somewhat cordial. I tried to look you in the eye and shake your hand. But there's a world that exists beyond that. That's very weird. The theater world, the comedy world, these people that I work with have a lot of energy just like me. They're just as weird as I am. And I might see somebody I haven't seen in a while, and instead of going up and shaking their hand in an appropriate, socially acceptable way, I might run from across the room and jump into their arms and give them a big bear hug. Oh man, Gary, so good to see you. Haven't seen you since last week, That, though, is very normal for the world that I live in. I work with a lot of weirdos. I work in a world where people are constantly trying to be artistic and try to create things out of nothingness. And in doing so, you have to embrace the weird. You have to take the idea of what is a little unusual or a little outside of the box or maybe totally, completely crazy, and you have to be able to embrace those ideas, and you have to be able to try to figure out what's maybe appropriate for this situation, what's appropriate for that situation. But you don't necessarily want to take something that's weird and dismiss it. If I had done that, I would have a very different life. I've made a lot of weird decisions. I have had some stable employment in my past, and for some reason that didn't really sit with me well. It wasn't a good environment for me. So I have quit. I've walked out of jobs that had paychecks so that I could do something that paid nothing, but it was fulfilling to me on other levels. So for some people, that's weird. If I hadn't have made those choices when I did, I wouldn't be standing up here talking to all of you today. So I can't remember what my next slide is. Let's find out together. Hey! So that's my wife. She's just as weird as I am, and I think we're perfect for each other. Yeah, you can clap for her. She's right over there. She deserves it. So this is a fun picture. This is from our wedding. It was actually really easy to find this photo because there was more than one image of us being crazy and fun and weird. But this is a great example of who we are as people, because we aren't necessarily concerned about how we're portraying ourselves to the world. We're just trying to live our lives in our weird way that we do. So 15 minutes already. Geez, I better get my cards out. So I'm trying not to. So, oh yeah, I did that. Okay, cool. So, I've made a lot of weird decisions in my life, and one of those weird decisions was I went to a toga party. And that's a weird thing to do, especially when you're not in college anymore. I was just out of college, went to a toga party, but that's where I met this amazing woman. And if I hadn't made the decision to be a little weird that night, I never would have met her. And the fact that I was a little weird, sort of, I don't know, maybe this is wrong, but I think that was a little bit of the attraction there. She's like, this guy's a little different from other people I know. That there's a reason for that. There's something about that. It might be weird, but maybe it's enchanting. I don't know. I'm just saying. It might be enchanting. But weirdness as a positive, if you're looking at, again, thinking of the idea of being weird is unusual or different, that doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that it's different. It's weird. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Weirdness, really what it can do is lead to fun. It can lead to excitement. It can lead to some of the best decisions that you can make in your life if you're willing to try to embrace that weirdness in a way. So, for example, Anja giving her 30-second speech today is a little weird, but where she's going to be at the Milwaukee Fringe Fest this weekend, she's going to fit in just fine. And if all of you show up, you're probably going to be the weird ones, because you're not going to be over the top crazy. Well, you might be, but you know, Anja showing up wearing bear ears or some other sort of costume is going to fit in very well with that environment, in the same way that actors fit in very well with each other, being crazy and weird with each other. That's the normal in that situation. So if in the theater world I was a very, straight-laced, button-up person, not that there's anything wrong with that, but if that's how my demeanor was in the theater world, I would be the oddball. I would really be the weird one in that situation. When you're in a room full of weirdness, the thing that sticks out the most is the least weird thing in the room. I don't know if that makes sense. Anyway, this is my family. So there's me, my sister, my brother-in-law, my wife, and my sister and brother-in-law's 3 kids. And you can see they fit right into the weirdness. And what it really comes down to is they're doing what my parents did. They're allowing their kids to just be themselves and to show their own personalities coming through, and they're letting their kids embrace the idea of being an individual, We did take a nice photo before this one, but in our family, we always have to do the 2 photos, okay? Here's a serious one. Matt, I said serious photo first. Okay, now you can be weird. Now you can be weird. There's appropriate times. There's some instances where it's okay to be weird. There's instances where it's not okay to be weird. And it can sometimes be a fine line. But what I would say is I would assume the majority of people here are in some kind of creative endeavor or try to embrace creativity in some way. Just by a show of hands, who is in an industry that's creative-based? Awesome. Okay. I would be a little worried if at a CreativeMornings thing you were, not into that. But the truth is, in the creative world especially, there needs to be weirdness so that you can set yourself apart. In the marketing world is probably a really good example. What comes to mind right away are those Skittle commercials, where, one of my all-time favorite ones is the guy goes and everything he touches turns to Skittles, and he tries to answer the phone and it just turns into Skittles, and he touches his desk and everything turns into Skittles, and everything's going crazy. But you remember that commercial because it was weird. You remember that dynamic because it stood out from the car advertisement that you just saw, or the grocery store ad telling you that avocados are on sale, or whatever the case may be. So being weird in your daily lives can add a whole lot to what you're trying to accomplish. If you're looking to change things up, or you're in some kind of a creative funk, sometimes the best thing that you can do is take the craziest, weirdest, most avant-garde idea that you have and embrace it. Figure out, hey, is this a possible solution? Wow, I don't know what that was, but that woke everybody up if you haven't had enough coffee yet. Embracing the idea of what weird is and in trying to embrace that creativity in a positive way can be really beneficial. So let me give you some examples. The comedy world. I put live comedy events on. That's a good portion of what I do. And in that, by definition, that's a weird profession. I work with a whole lot of people. I have a lot of serious conversations about ridiculous things. I have people that walk into my office and ask me crazy questions like, hey, Matt, I'm just trying to figure out, does a severed head work in this situation? Or do you feel like it should be a dead puppy? I mean, where do we need to go with that? Crazy, crazy ideas, but that's the world that I live in. In the theater world, same thing. I have had a serious conversation about severed heads in the theater world. This severed head just doesn't look real enough. This one has too much blood. This one has not enough. That's crazy, that's weird, but it can have a huge impact on the audience that's going to come and see that show. So in the comedy world, in the theater world, I know I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. You guys knew I was weird when I showed up, okay? You already knew that, so you just have to bear with me. But in the worlds that I live in, again, we have to embrace the weird at every aspect of what we do. We have to look at the world around us, and we have to figure out what's a little off-center, what is a lot off-center. Okay, and is going way too off-center, is that too far? Not far enough? There's a balance that you have to find, not just in life, not just in business, but overall. Because if you're just crazy weird, you're unapproachable. If you're a little weird, like most of my friends, let's say all of my friends, that's what I love about you. Those are the characteristics that make me want to hang out with you. Like, oh man, every time I hang out with Anthony, I know it's going to be something artistic, and beer's going to be involved. That's usually a good thing, and something crazy, but we know it doesn't matter what happens at the end of the day. We know we're going to have a weird, crazy, fun time together. So by trying to take the idea of what weird is and take that negative aspect and throw that away and really try to embrace the idea of weird is something that can benefit you in whatever that you're doing. In your daily life, letting your kids be a little bit weird can be really beneficial to them growing up. I grew up in a fairly normal family, and my parents weren't necessarily weird, but they were very supportive of allowing me to be weird. And they knew when weird was too much. I wasn't necessarily a bad kid, but I definitely got into trouble. My mom likes to joke that when I was younger, I was positive that my full name was No Matthew, because that's what I heard all the time. No, Matthew, no, put that down, no, stop. But on that level, it's because it was something that could be dangerous, or something that I could hurt myself with, or it's something that just, no, Matthew, don't steal that car. That's not appropriate. Whatever. I have never stolen a car, but, for example, a weird example, if you will. So, by allowing yourself and allowing the people around you to be a little bit weird, what you're really doing is you're allowing yourself and the people around you to be individuals and to be, individually weird, if that's even, I don't know if that works. I don't know. Let me see what my next slide is. Okay. This is the Milwaukee Public Museum, and I was on jury duty when this photo was taken. So that, if you've ever had jury duty, that's a long day. A whole lot of just sitting around. And if you're the weird guy in the room, people are going to notice right away. So that was one of those days where I had to just kind of sit in the corner and read a book and try not to be weird, quote unquote. But when we went on lunch, there was one other person there that I knew, a graphic designer friend of mine, and we had worked together a number of years. She's a little weird. It comes out just naturally. She's a little bit weird, but she's one of those people that allows other people to be weird around her and allows that weirdness from other people to affect her. So she becomes a better designer by being around weird people like myself. So this is kind of a fun picture because this was just 5 minutes out of my day, but it was the best part of my day because this, doing something crazy and then just kind of embracing the idea of like, oh, I can't get out of this place, but here's a fun way to do that. So I think that's my, oh, okay, yeah. It's weird, right? It's weird, but cute. What's weird about it is that those are human eyes and human teeth. And it's weird because it's unusual. I don't really have any real stories about this photo. I just thought it was weird. So there you go. To give you just a couple of quick examples of how I've been able to embrace weird. I think the Fringe Festival is a good example. I'm not just trying to promote the things that I'm doing. It's just a really large project. We have over 400 different performers over 2 days, 4 or 5 venues, I can't even remember at this point, all coming together. And it's going to be the kind of situation where there's going to be a huge amount of weirdness. There's going to be a huge amount of oddities. But it all is arts related. It's all going to be done in tasteful ways, and it's all going to be done in extravagant and fun and interesting ways. And to me, that's what really weird is all about. It's all about trying to embrace that creativity and trying to take that energy that is around. I mean, for me, I have probably more energy than anybody. I could power a small city with the amount of energy that I have inside of me, and I still drank about half a gallon of coffee today just to get me out the door. But being able to take that idea of weirdness and all the people around me that are weird and really trying to embrace that, that's what's created what you see in front of you. So I know I have a point about this, I swear. In the theater world, like I mentioned before, I kind of dabbled that I'm in the theater world, I can be in a room full of lots of weird people. And if I'm the one that's not weird, that actually makes me the oddball. In my career, being weird is actually a job description. You need to be a little off center because that's the only way that you can truly see how to take things in a different way. By not embracing weird, you kind of put yourself in a box and you kind of say like, these are the limits of what I'm able to do. And by being weird, essentially what you can do is take a big step outside of that box. And it allows you to look, oh, okay, that's what I was doing, but what if I did it this way, We always, in graphic design, we always use these colors. Well, what if we did something crazy and used this color? Oh man, we use squares for everything. Let's use a circle. Oh, simple examples, but they could have a huge impact on what you're doing. Is if all you ever do is use circles, and one day you use a triangle or you use a square, that could literally change people's lives based on what you're trying to accomplish. And I'm trying to relate as far as in the theater world, you have to take things to the extreme where you're working on a show and you have lines written down as far as what you're supposed to portray to the audience. But the rehearsal process is all about trying to figure out how to get there. So if you think about the script in your hands is sort of A to B, is that direct path of where you need to go. And the creativity or the weirdness that you're trying to embrace is sort of the road of life. Like, the road of life is never that straight line. The road of life is this crazy back and forth, up and down, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back kind of a situation. And that's what that rehearsal process is a lot like in the theater and comedy worlds. So what you need to do as creative people and in your world is try to take things to an extreme, you know, and it doesn't have to be publicly. It doesn't have to be in front of your coworkers. It doesn't have to be in front of people you know. You can be inside of a dark room and do it all that way, and then whatever you decide is, you know, socially acceptable or whatnot, you know, reveal that to the world. But in the theater world, you do this creative process together. You are as weird as you possibly can within the structure of the script, and by the end of that theater process, you've picked out the best pieces and you've figured out, okay. And it's in a lot of ways you can think of it as, you know, if you're putting graphic design together and you're working in Photoshop, you know, you might mess with layers or the transparency a little bit and you're like, oh, that did something I wasn't expecting. That red is coming through that graphic in such a weird way, but oh, if I bring it down just 80% or 75%, and you get it just to that right point where it's just weird enough, but it has a huge impact on what you're trying to do. That's really what I'm trying to say, is by taking the idea of weird and embracing it to the point that you're breaking down your limits. You're saying, by thinking of weird as a negative, you're putting a wall up in front of you. So by trying to embrace that weirdness, try to be creative with that weirdness and try to make it a positive aspect, I feel like you can hopefully, I don't know, be as weird as me and enjoy it.
All right.
That's all I got.